Hey, son, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Sky? Good, how are you? Where at? There was still shoots there. You know, that's the biggest point of confusion. I guess my biggest concern is not sucking up all our time talking about that. Because at the end of the day, that discussion can be productive, getting us closer to an ordinance. I would prefer to spend what little time we have getting us closer to an ordinance. Rainer could come up during staff comments and explain it. I mean, isn't that the biggest confusion? Because it's not you're taxing it, so therefore it's a business. If it's a business, it's not allowed. So, and it's just not. Yeah, but let's do it during staff comment.
Sonia, Turner, how are you?
Eugene, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, Scotty. Yes, sir. She doing good.
Greg's not gonna be here tonight. Which I need. I got 5 o'clock.
I'm hanging in there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got 5 o'clock, so I'm gonna call this work session Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members other than Greg Paget are here. So let's get going. You should have an agenda in the smaller folder. First up is Barry Mott going to give a review of our capital projects. Barry and Jonathan. Yep.
How are y'all this evening?
Good. How
Great.
you doing, Barry?
Doing great. I come with good news today. So we, our parking lot that we're doing on Edwards and Lee and Easy Street, paving will go down tomorrow. So we'll have pavement down tomorrow. We'll, next week, first part of the week, they committed sometime by the middle of next week, we have all the sidewalks down. So all the curb and gutter will be down next week. And the light poles, the two large power poles that have the lights on it, will be up as well next week. So we'll have everything in place. The one item that I'm working on is the striping for it, to have it done by Monday week, by the 30th, before the parade. So feel confident we can get this. We get everything else done. We get the striping done.
Right.
So that's good news on the parking lot. We're still in the decorative poles. Those things are still out several weeks in the future.
So those will not be installed.
They're not, but we'll have the cans in the sidewalk, and they'll be capped off. Then when the poles come in, we'll come and install those at a later date, whatever those are available. But at least the parking lot will be up and open by that time. Also, last week, y'all approved an agreement with the Baptist Church for the Connors parking lot. That will about 60% of that parking lot we're repaving. It was some asphalt that was put down on top of concrete. We'll have that done Thursday of this week as well. While they're paving their parking lot on the Easy Street, we're going to go ahead and pave that as well. And we've got a couple of alleyways that we needed to get done as well under that same contract that we have with the county. So we'll have the alleyway behind Milky Moo's up in that area, that T-shaped alley, as well as a little small portion up towards Annie's. That'll be paved as well. That'll all be done this week. We've got, let's see what else I got for you. The phase 3 paving project, or phase 2 for Glenn, Glenn's handling with us. We have a pre-con this week on that to get that started. Phase 3, we're looking at the roads to be added to the phase 3 paving project, and I've got that in my review, so I'll have that done in the next couple of weeks, so we'll know what that looks like, and I'll have it up for y'all's approval for a task order for that as well.
So when do we think we're putting asphalt down on phase 2?
Phase 2 will be 1st of December, right after Thanksgiving. And we'll know more after the pre-con later this week about when they get started, but we're here in 1st of December. We've got, so some of you know, we took bids last week for the Sidewalk Rehab project that we did, and that project was we had some pieces of sidewalk that had a lip on it, a tripping hazard, so we were going to grind those down, and then pieces that were broken, we were going to take those up and put those back down with new sidewalk. We had 0 bids from any contractors on that project. So we remobilized, and we have got someone, purchase order is being done with y'all's, unless y'all have an issue with it. It's within budget. We found somebody to do all the grinding work, and they're ready to get started on that next week. So we'll start seeing improvements on all our sidewalks next week, and the same area that we proposed to you on the streets. That proposal covered, bear with me, 386 repairs. So 386 steps that we will grind back down, so they'll be ADA compliant. And total linear footage is about 1,700 feet. So we got that done for right at $34,000, which is a lot better than tearing those sidewalks up and replacing them. We can grind those down. Those are in good shape. Also tonight on the agenda, I'm seeking permission to go back out for bids. We're going to break the concrete project up into 2 different phases. We're going to get a material bid. So it'll be a unit price bid for buying the concrete, then also going out for labor, for getting someone to remove those concrete slabs and putting it back down. So the city will purchase the concrete, and we'll have someone to just do the labor portion of that. This is more work on staff to do it this way, to break these 3 projects up, but we'll get the project completed as y'all desired, and we'll still be under budget. So that's the way that I'm tackling that, unless you have any questions for me on that one.
So other than what's already in our agenda, that's the only official action you need from us tonight.
Yes, sir.
On that stuff.
There's just 2 requests for allowing me to go out for bids for those 2 items. And it's actually, It's the same project we did before. For transparency, I thought it was good to go back to you and let you know what my intention was to break up labor and material to do that. We've also got by the first part of December, we'll have a rough grading plan on the soccer fields. So that's at Paving Park and on the property at the college. So as soon as we get a grading plan on that we can agree on with our consultant, then we'll start, have a groundbreaking out there for that and start moving dirt for the soccer fields. So that'll happen the first part of December. So that's a quick rundown of what I had as a quick update for you on your projects, unless you have any questions for me.
So you might have any questions about those projects?
Not here.
Jonathan, did you want to touch on the American Relief Funds?
While he's coming up here, we did meet with the property owners for all those paving projects I talked to you about. They got flyers today, so the business owners do know what we'll be doing over the next couple of days to work with us as we're trying to get these improvements completed.
So the American Relief Fund city is scheduled to get 5.26 million in funding. We received approximately $3 million of that, with the remainder coming in approximately June of next year. We still don't have final guidance from the Department of Treasury, but the interim final guidance, whatever that means, is pretty close. And we feel pretty confident that water and sewer, which I've talked to you about, would be something that would be considered, where we wouldn't have to go back to the federal government and write them a check because we spent the money incorrectly. So things that address safe drinking water, for instance, replacing some 100-year-old pipe or something that we have in the city, things like that, or updates to the sewer system that process and treat our waste. Those are pretty safe, that we feel on legal terms that we would be good with on an audit. And so Glenn and Barry went out and looked at our sewer treatment facilities to kind of get an estimate on what we needed to fix if we were to get everything up and running the way it needed to be. I think that number was somewhere around $2.753 million. Is that
Worst case, 3.5.
worst case $3.5 million on the sewer, and that would address the College Street plant and Northeast. Okay, so those that project would we think about $3 million, but worst case $3.5. We've also talked to the water department about their needs, and they have a lot. In particular, the strain on the water department to replace lines that are aging as we do the street resurfacing project are well in excess of the funds we even have at the $5.26 million level. So we were hoping to just kind of feel out the council and see, of those two projects, if we could appropriate some amount, $3 million roughly for sewer, and $2.75 million for water. Or no, I'm sorry, that math doesn't add up. $2.5 million for sewer and $2.75 for water. It would get you to the 5.26 million. Would be what we were asking for the council to consider and kind of give us direction on, in terms of how we spent those funds. The reason that we, particularly on the water side, we have to account for those funds. The city does. We're awarded those funds from the federal government. We can't just turn around and give $2.75 million to the water department or any amount. We would have to administer it through some kind of a contract that we pay the bills for the water department, or the water board. So general discussion about that for the council. I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments, or if you think that'd be a good use of the funds.
Scotty, you got any?
No, I think it's a good split down the middle. I mean, they both need fixing, and if we don't do something, it's going to cost a whole lot more. So,
Well, me serving on the water board, I am very well aware of the situation with the old lines we need to replace. And so I'm very happy as part of this money, the 2.5 million could go into the water board, and we'll keep a separate account, whatever necessary to, show how those funds are used, because we need them desperately to replace our water lines.
for sure. Mm-hmm.
It's tying into the pavement. I mean, we got to replace the water lines, and so.
That's right. If we don't,
Anyway, we can help them with that. That helps with what we want to do down the road with our paving.
The risk is if we don't replace the lines into the paving project and we know they're at risk, we're going to be tearing up roads that we just spent good money to pay.
So, I guess 2 points I've got, we've got this money. Let's not just come up with some make work to go spend it. It doesn't sound like y'all are. I mean, B, if the stuff needs to be fixing, if we need to be fixing it, I mean, should we be looking at doing more than just some magic number that the federal government's given us? If so, how much is that?
So the water board knows what their number is, and like I said, it's in excess of even the funds that we receive from the federal government, and I think they're working on a plan to address that. Barry, I'll let you talk about what you've been working on the sewer.
So I reached out to a couple consultants that we have used in the city and asked them to give me a proposal of how they would approach the project, and both of them came back with a look at a master plan, basically for the wastewater treatment plants, kind of an immediate needs, what we got to do right now, what's broke, what do we need to fix, as well as a short-term and a longer-term needs. So the first part of this would be to lay out a plan to say, is it number 2, is it 2.5, is it 3, what is that number? But the first thing we would do is do kind of a master plan light, like do a full assessment of both the plants. What are the needs? What are the costs? And they gave us a real cursory review of what they saw in a one-day walkthrough. But I've got those proposals on my desk for review, and then I was going to make a recommendation if y'all want to move forward with this with a group to move us forward in the wastewater. There are definite needs at both plants, and there's definitely some short-term absolutely got to do, and there's some things that we need to be planning on down the road.
In aggregate, we have to expend the American Relief Funds by December of 24, as it is on the books, or have them obligated. So if we have other needs that need to be addressed in this comprehensive plan that Barry's looking at, we can certainly address that. But I think that one of the things we talked about doing for next FY and beyond is having a capital plan for the city. And that, I think this would be in part of the capital plan if that number exceeds it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's my point. I mean, we don't need to be just sitting around waiting for somebody to give us money to fix this stuff. I mean, okay. All right. Thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Sounds like we're in agreement just to move forward with your plans. So moving on to our next item, which is short-term rental discussion. So as we discussed last time, and as I sent y'all an email about with some items to be prepared to discuss, it's something that's been going on for at least 2 meetings prior. So over the last month or so, we've been given several sample ordinances, and you've all had time to do your own homework on these. So, I think y'all agree that it's time to be trying to head towards an ordinance on this if we're going to do anything on it. So I wanted to get the ball rolling on that tonight. I think what we need to do for the benefit of our staff, of our attorney, Rayner, is they need to know where our heads are at on this. Are we mostly in alignment on this? But we need, or are we worlds apart on this? So obviously there's certain categories that are addressed in all of the ordinances that we were given. So I just wanted to ask plainly, y'all to state your positions on these different categories. So hopefully y'all all were prepared to do that. So the first one is this idea of, well, I guess first, let me get this out of the way. Do y'all think, and Scotty, I'll begin with you, do you think this is something we need to address?
Yes.
Definitely.
Sonia? Yeah, okay, and I agree. So, obviously there's agreement with that. If there were 4 no's, then we were just going to move on. But so one of the sample ordinances we were given allows for a conditional approval in specific residential and business zones. So this would require the Zoning Board of Adjustment to approve each individual property on a case-by-case basis. Scotty, are you in general in favor of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Sonia?
I'm not sure yet. I would like Stacy to answer a question.
Okay.
On the surface, I'll be prepared to answer. I want, if Stacy can, with this approval by the Board of Adjustments, explain how that process goes, timeframes, monies, just give me a little bit about.
Sure, sure.
Well, I do think that we would have control over a lot of that in any ordinance.
I know, but I want her to.
Yeah. So I mean, where would your head be on that, Stace?
So say somebody has a dozen properties, 12 different addresses. Basically, each address that that person owned would be a separate application. So for one meeting, you'd have 12 item agendas, and you have to notify each property individually because each property has at least 4 adjacent property owners. Most have 6, but most of them have 4.
And somebody across the street is
Right.
considered adjacent.
Correct. And depending on how the parcel lines go, you could have 3 across the street, 3 in the back, so forth and so on. So, it would be, there would be a lot of work involved because those people have to get notified by certified mail. There's a $25 application fee, so it'll be $25 per property per application. And I think that it's stated in there as you guys go down, you'll see that I think it stated 60 days from the date that the ordinance would be approved, that those people that own those properties would have to get their business license, which would also include having to go to the Board of Adjustment for that conditional use. That is a 30-day process. So the Board of Adjustment meets the second Wednesday of every month, and we have to have everything in 30 days prior to that. So my only comment is that if that's something that y'all are in agreement for, I'm not sure if we need a little bit more time for the Board of Adjustment, because I think, if I heard correctly, there was 111 of them. So just think of 111 item agendas within 60 days.
Yeah.
So, and then all those adjacent property owners would have to be notified. We'd have to do our notification in the Southeast Sun, so forth and so on. So that's basically the process.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the onboarding of all these, the initial backlog, I guess, is, for lack of a better word, would look different, the first few months of an ordinance being in place than 10 years from now when just
Right.
one person wants to.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
just so you guys know, each address, like I said, say someone had a dozen of them, each address would be a separate item agenda. So each item agenda would have a public hearing. So if
Right.
those property owners were here, they'd have a choice to voice their opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
does
So,
that answer your question, Tanya?
so with that, I mean, are you in general on board with something like that, Sonia?
No, I'm not.
Okay. What
And I'm gonna
what
tell
would you like to see?
Well, I don't know what I would like to see in its totality, but I'm not in favor of it because unless I'm missing something or unless I'm not getting the calls, I haven't heard about a single problem with this other than one dwelling that was no police report. So I'm wondering, how much we need to get involved with this. If we got things in place, we got noise ordinance, we got, last I checked, drugs are still illegal here. And it could, why can't, I'm not against putting something in place that's of course gonna make everybody feel comfortable, make our citizens feel comfortable, but just to put this much energy into one incident, unless it's others, we're talking about, I think I heard the number of 120 something Airbnb homes in Enterprise, and this is one issue that I'm hearing, and we just turning tables. I mean, what are we not doing, or what is it that we need to do to make sure that residents still feel safe, their well-being is met? If it's not something that's illegal or immoral or causing some danger, I don't see what's different. What this has been going on is what I'm saying. It's been going on.
Right.
Chief has not mentioned to me about any police report from that incident or any other problem. So do we really have, I mean, how big of a problem is this at this juncture? Yes, I know with some residents highly upset that this landed on their street, but you know.
So what would your preference be? So you said you were in favor of addressing it with an ordinance.
Because this is me addressing it. That's what I'm saying. I'm in favor of addressing it. You know.
So,
I'm not saying
but you're not in favor of you want status quo. It sounds like you do not want an ordinance.
Not necessarily. I don't.
Okay. So there's really no answer to my second question of what you would do different, because what you would want is to just leave it alone.
Well, no, not saying just leave it alone. You know, I'm not opposed to. I don't know what that looks like, to put something in place that will provide stipulations that will ultimately protect all of our citizens. That, you know, their safety. Of course, if it's a bad party going on at whether it's an Airbnb or whatever, if people bumping music all times of the night, we got noise ordinances. Call the police.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying.
But I'm just saying.
I'm missing something.
So practically, the council has two options: to do nothing, or to produce an ordinance and pass it. So which direction would your preference be?
My preference, I haven't seen it's some stuff in the ordinance I don't care for, and I thought you was going through point some of those out.
Well, so we're on now. So you would so you're okay with an ordinance, but you don't want.
I don't know. I've got to see what else you're gonna present, or the staff is gonna give me. As far as I'm not in favor of banning Airbnb properties in enterprise.
Okay.
I'm not.
So the specific the specific question. So the specific question is: would you be on board with an ordinance that allowed for the conditional approval on a case-by-case basis of them, or would you be more in favor of an ordinance that just allowed them in single-family residential neighborhoods?
Yeah, I'm just not for this case-by-case. I just think it's just too much.
Okay. All right.
And I'm gonna go a little further with that. The reason why I'm not, I guess it's kind of rubbing me wrong, because like I said, I'm not hearing that this is a major problem in enterprise. With this many, I was alarmed to hear that we have as many Airbnb homes as we have in enterprise. Okay, so maybe I'm looking at it wrong, and please one of y'all tell me if I am. You know, when I read that allows for conditional improvements in specific residential and business zones, to me, it's almost like saying picking and choosing how we zone certain areas in the city. You know, like it's okay to say, and I'm just using these neighborhoods out there throwing like, it's okay, because I've heard everybody has come up here and stood and talked about this, and I have heard more than one time. I don't have a problem with Airbnb being an enterprise. I just don't want it on my street. I just don't want it in my neighborhood. Have you not heard that? And so when I hear that, it's like I'm hearing, oh, it's fine over here, or over there where you are, but it's not fine over here. So it's cool to have Airbnb in Whispering Pines, but it's not cool in Tartan Pines.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm getting it wrong. I'm basing off what I've heard.
So the sample ordinances I've seen did not distinguish along those lines. It was along, so they were either allowed in single family or not. If they were allowed in single family, it was in R65, R75, R100. The distinction was at the multifamily level, where professionally managed apartments, and then townhomes would be up to that would be in the gray area. So you wouldn't have conditional approval in an apartment building unless we wanted it. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't in TH1, 2, and 3 unless we wanted it, and then all single family. So regardless of whether it's Whispering Pines or pick your other neighborhood, regardless, it would be conditional approval in single family is the way I understood this question to be. So it would not be along which side of town it's on.
I just say this would sound like to me. I just want to be like I said, I could be looking at it wrong. My answer's still no.
Okay, I'm not trying tonight at the night. I'm trying to talk you into
And I
that.
could change my
I'm
mind.
just
I mean, we're
I'm
not
just making
voting
sure
on
you
it.
understand what the question.
No, I'm just saying what I've gotten so far.
Okay.
It's a no for me.
So minimum night stay is another thing. Scotty, what are your thoughts on minimum number of nights?
Well, all the ones that I've seen have had minimum nights in there to preclude, coming in one night and going out. So
Right.
I would-
So do you have a number in mind of what you would?
most of them
support?
I've seen have been 3,
Minimum.
but yeah, and I've
Okay.
seen some with 2. So that's something we're going to have to talk about. Excuse me.
So so you don't have a preference right now?
Not really.
Okay. Eugene,
I
minimum
do
night?
agree that you should have a minimum night stay. The example used here is 2 nights. I would go along with that, but like Scotty says, 3 nights would make a big difference. But yes, I think you should have a minimum.
Okay. Sonia, your thoughts on that?
I'm not opposed to a minimum number of nights stay. Going back to this particular incident, I think it was a party involved that would help deter some of the issues that I think a lot of residents don't want. They don't want it to be so short that these events or these stays turn into party houses.
So do you have a number in mind?
3 is, I mean, I've seen 3 a lot on Airbnb. I don't think that's.
Yeah, and I'm in the same way. 2 or 3 nights. At least 2. I could be on board with 3 also. Scott, are you in favor of requiring an annual business license at all short-term rental owners of $100? So you've got 2 different ways you can go with this. You can have a license per property or a license per owner. So
I think it should just be per owner.
but you're okay.
Yes.
You're okay with having if for nothing else, a registry for a nominal amount, $7,500, so that staff could administer it.
Yes.
Eugene?
I disagree with that. I think if you've got a person has 1 Airbnb and you have a person has 10, I believe that they should have to pay a license fee for each house.
For each property. Okay. Sonia?
I'm not in agreement with that. Probably a little different reason than Eugene, and y'all correct me again. I'm not expert on how Airbnb works, but like if I have an Airbnb, don't they get funds from me, or is it I have to pay a tax into them? How does it work?
So this isn't taxes we're
This
talking
is
about.
just about fees, just
So-
within the.
The
So they would
A
withhold
license.
fee. Yeah, my
Just the
assumption
license
is they
fee.
would.
Okay, I got you.
It's just license fees. So should they have to come down? And I think Leanne can speak to this. If we don't do this, it would be very difficult
Yeah,
to
give me a little
on
more.
this.
Yeah, okay, so from an accounting standpoint, in order for us to be able to receive in taxes, for the lodging taxes, someone would have to have an account with us in the city. I have to be able to set that up in the system. I can't just take a check to the bank and deposit it in and say, great, we've got tax money. Is that it has to be applied correctly in our accounting system and reported in an appropriate way. The way for us to do that is for somebody to come in and set up an account with us, and the way that they do that is by getting a business license. So right now, and this kind of goes a little bit backwards towards the ordinance, and maybe Stacy can help me out on this, on what's required in engineering. Part of our problem right now is that my hands are tied on issuing a business license because these homes are located in areas that when I issue the business license, they have to get clearing from engineering. Engineering cannot give them that clearing right now because of the zoning, that they can't operate certain businesses in these areas. Maybe you can explain this. Say this better for me.
Okay, so basically, there's no ordinance in place. Okay, we don't have anything that regulates short-term rentals. Okay, so are they allowed? Are they not allowed? There's no ordinance in place. There's nothing in our zoning ordinance. So
it's really being treated as a long-term rental.
yes,
Yes.
with no taxes being collected by the city right now.
Yes.
So basically, January 1, she has to start collecting these taxes. Well, we won't have an ordinance in place by January 1 because of the legalities and the timelines that we have to go through with the processes. So with the Board of Adjustment conditional use approval, they all have to get approved through the Board of Adjustment before they can get a business license. So
But the taxes are due.
Yes, the taxes are due
But she can't collect taxes without a business license, can't get a business license.
without the.
How can you keep up with how many they have? Who's going to pay the license unless you have a license per unit? You know, this guy has 10 units.
Well, they have to have proof of that. I mean, they have to have.
They need to have a license per unit.
And really, that's up to y'all.
If I had two plumbing businesses in town, I'd have to have a license for both of them.
For both addresses.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
that's definitely up to y'all.
Yes, sir.
So, but all I'm saying is that as far as the timeline of her being able to start collecting taxes on those, I think you said your system was January 1. Was it
Well,
January 1?
that's for the new business license
Okay.
codes. It's January 1.
That's right.
But yeah.
But they would have to have, before they can get their business license and we can start collecting taxes, if y'all choose to do the conditional portion of this, they would have to get conditional use. So say the ordinance doesn't go into effect until the first council meeting in March. Then 60 to 90 days after that, we have to hear all of these. We can't hear all 125 in 1 month. We'll be here for 2 days. So we're probably gonna have to split them up. And I'm just trying to give you guys all the facts.
Right.
So, you know, you guys can make a collective decision, as the council. So just remember that if y'all decide to do the conditional use, they would have to go through that process before they could get their business license. So you're potentially looking at July, August, September of next year that all these current people would be licensed. But like with what Eugene said, if they're going to get a business license per address, that's how you would keep track of them. So if you decided not to go through the conditional use approval, you know, if you guys decided against that and just took that out, we could track them through the business license if y'all chose to do a per address business license.
Yeah, that I will
So
change.
you changed.
Yeah.
I agree with
Now that I hear all that.
But we're at the spot right now where while the taxes are in place, I have no way of appropriately recording them in our records without issuing that business license, which currently I can't do because we don't have anything in place allowing me to do that. So however restrictive or less restrictive you decide to go, it would be important for us to be able to collect those taxes and be able to make sure that we're getting a record of everyone who's operating these businesses to ensure that everyone's remitting the taxes that are required.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, that makes sense. And you know, I would be on board. You know, if it helps with the facilitation, I'm not sure if I'd want, you know, a license of $100 if they have 10, you know, $100 every time, maybe some sort of graduated license. But I would have no problem with having to license every property. Rainer, can you be prepared for staff reports? There's two issues I want you to address. First of all, just the overall legality. I mean, it appears there's some confusion over, is this legal? Is it not? Should we shut them all down? Should we let them all go? Under our current and existing laws as of November 16th, 2021. And then also, you know, what is a business? Where are businesses allowed? Is this residential use? Is this commercial use? Is this business use? Address those two things in staff reports, if you could, please. So, moving on. Scott,
Can I ask one
yes,
other
go ahead.
question?
Go ahead, Eugene.
All right, if the subdivision has a homeowners association, or if the subdivision has existing ordinances that does not allow the Airbnb, would that override other ordinances?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's not our intention to try to abrogate existing covenants or rules or regulations of the homeowners association. So, we're not, this in fact, this draft ordinance, whenever we get to a point where we're good with one ordinance, my idea would be let's put it on the website, forms, acted on, let everybody look at it. But it says in there, in this draft, that this ordinance is not meant to supersede private covenants.
Yeah.
Now, without getting too complicated, in other there's some strange Alabama court cases on that issue as to covenants, but about whether they apply for these situations, even when they restrict someone to single family use. But answer your question directly, our ordinance says this is not meant to supersede. So if covenants were legally prohibiting a short-term rental, it's not intended that this ordinance override that to allow it. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on because we do have some other stuff to discuss. Scotty, just give your any other general thoughts of what you would like to see included or excluded from any future ordinance on this.
Well, I agree with Sonia when she talked about one incident. But I had read in several of the short-term rental policies or procedures that I've seen around for the state and other states is there was a mention of a 3-strike and out, type policy. Revoking certificates, it said will remain revoked for the remainder of the current year plus one additional calendar year. Maybe that's something we could talk about, think about the legalities of that, Rainer, too, of, again, one incident, but do we have something like that? Will that keep people from not monitoring or maintaining their properties and allowing certain things to happen? But I'll just enough said on that. The other thing is looking at building and fire code compliance along with the fire and building codes, safety of the folks that are using these places. Smoke, carbon monoxide alarms, operable egress windows in sleeping areas. I wrote down proper hand, and guardrails. Is a person going to come back and sue? I don't know much about Airbnb, but there's certain things you have in hotel rooms. GFIC protection, fire extinguishers, properly displayed 911 address, and a lot of this comes because I'm concerned with the safety. But I got to thinking about things like that for folks that are going into these places. One other thing, I've already sent Jonathan, our city administrator, some comments, and one of them, Rainer's already mentioned, does not supersede individual community ordinances. And there were some other ends there. Maybe should the license specify the number of guests allowed? Ordinance should, let's see.
I think the sample we saw said two per bedroom.
Right.
That's correct.
Which seemed reasonable.
Yeah. So I'll just end it at that.
3 vehicles allowed.
Yeah.
So,
Well, who is that reasonable to?
so
2 people per bedroom.
just a second, Eugene, you have any final comments? Anything you want to see included or excluded before we move on?
I do not.
Okay, Sonia.
It's just stuff I think that it's just a bit nitpicky. 2 people per bedroom. You can have 4 kids in one bedroom, and see. I just think that's ridiculous. To say that these properties can't have events or can't have parties is ridiculous. Neighborhoods that's not Airbnb properties, just people living there and have events. Children graduate from high school, they have homecoming, they have big parties, they have cars. I just don't think that's necessary to say how many cars can be parked alongside the road. It's not a law, is it, Rainer, against how many cars can be parked on the side of the road?
It's not a zone.
Right.
It's parking.
That's where I'm going. So my overall thought is just to nitpick the whole process or the whole having these homes just because of an isolated incident. I'm just not for. That was a bad incident, and by no means am I lacking empathy for what happened. I don't want to hear a whole bunch of noise on my street, and I do. But I call the police too. So, I just, I think I like what Scotty said, something about, you get some strikes or whatever. I don't know how that would look, what that would look like, or how we would do that. But, we can't say one thing on one issue and when it's another issue, talk on another side of our mouths. We say we want to be a progressive city and that we don't want to be a hindrance to people doing business and enterprise, but then we want to sit here and do that essentially. You know, just to use an example why I'm not for a lot of this. You know, we're going to get a veterans home. Okay? These homes are helpful to a lot of our military families that are coming in or going out. It keeps people from having to, live in hotels for weeks at a time. And everybody's not throwing parties. Everybody's not being a nuisance. And the whole process just shouldn't be painted with that brush. We're talking about getting a veterans home. A family could come in and say, hey, we want to spend Thanksgiving with Papa. We want to get him, and they could have 8-10 people in the home. That don't mean they're going to be throwing a party and that they got to be held to some standard just to simply enjoy each other and be together with their loved one. I just think it's not an overall good message to send, although it's not a good message to be smoking weed and partying. I get that. But I just think that I don't want to be rushed into just doing something to say we did it. I'm going back to what we said before. We want to do it right, and I'm not saying this isn't right. It's just some stuff I just don't like in it.
Okay, thank you. So my comments. So I'm with Scotty. I think we need a clear process for revocation in the event that we have a habitual bad actor. It sounds like everybody is on board with that. If we keep having problems with somebody, I would be in favor of prohibiting parking in the street, provided that it's in a neighborhood that is the normal way to park your car. I mean, we do have some neighborhoods where off-street parking is not available. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Sonia, that that residents in the neighborhood can park in the street, but I do think that it's a reasonable accommodation of a business to expect to be held to a little different standard when they're because this is people are doing this to make money off of. So I do think it's reasonable that they go above and beyond. Then I would also want to look at prohibiting the marketing of the property for any of the prohibitive uses. So if we have these rules in place, they shouldn't be advertised. Like if the ordinance says no parties, no bachelor parties, they shouldn't advertise this is perfect for a bachelor party. So I do think that we should prohibit any marketing of the property.
Can I say one more thing about that? Yeah. And I could be wrong, but I think I totally agree with that. That shouldn't, if that happened, that shouldn't have happened. Because when I go on Airbnb or how do you use VRB or Verb or whatever, they tell you those things on there, that what it's to be used for. And so, it says no parties.
Is there going to be a grace period for these hearings to take place and all that? Of course, I'm interested to see what Rainer says about the legality of these issues. But I do think there's going to have to be some accommodation to allow the rollout of this to happen. Whether that needs to be in the ordinance or whether we just provide some leeway to the mayor and his staff to get that on board, I don't know.
If you don't mind, I'll just comment on that real quick. I think if y'all decide to go with a conditional use approval, I think 90 days is sufficient because we could break that up over 3 meetings. I think that would be good. If y'all decide not to do a conditional use, I would say no more than 60 days, Leanne. I mean, I think 30 days would be sufficient from the date that the ordinance would be set for any of these people to come in and get their business license. But, if y'all wanted to give them 60 days, I wouldn't go past 60 days.
Right.
If you took out that conditional use approval.
Right. And then I said, just that I'd be interested in seeing a suggested plan from the staff of what the rollout of this ordinance would look like whenever we do get a draft back. So if hopefully what we can get out of this meeting tonight is an actual draft ordinance based on council comments. If we could get some feedback from staff on what the actual rollout would look like, which is basically what you just did. So that's all I've got. A couple of, so obviously this is the sausage making of local legislation. Staff and Rayner, y'all, I think, got your hands full from what we just threw at you tonight. Good thing is it's on video, so go back and look at it. Try to come up with something that you think we can at least debate. I mean, obviously, no surprise. I don't think, we're not going to get unanimous agreement on all this, which is fine. That's fine. We'll move forward. We'll try to reach some sort of consensus, maybe some give and take and some compromise. But with that said, Rainer, do you need some time to prepare those comments? We're not going to have time for our other agenda item, which was executive session on some economic development stuff. Jonathan, are you okay with us doing that at the end of the regular council meeting? So it's up to you, Rainer. We can recess this, and if you're ready to talk right now, why don't you? All right. Well, then let's just have a general discussion with Rainer on the legality and all that.
So I guess I just want to make sure I understand what you mean by the legality. You're talking about the legality of what we're proposing, perhaps, to do?
Up until just a few minutes ago, I thought there was a general opinion and agreement that this is a legal activity in the city of Enterprise as it stands today. Mm-hmm. There seemed to be a little confusion a minute ago, so just expound on that.
So a short-term rental of your home is in general legal, but the arguments that some have made are bed and breakfast are defined in our ordinance, boarding houses are defined in our ordinances. In my opinion, and I can only tell you what my opinion is, if we're going to regulate, depending on how much y'all decide to regulate or not regulate, it ought to be specifically dealing with the short-term rental of private residence and not simply rely on what may or may not exist in our code at this time. I think, this is just my opinion, that we need stronger, if we're going to regulate, we need stronger regulation. I don't mean more restrictive necessarily. I mean, we need to address the regulation. That's right. That's exactly right. So I have to think in terms of what could be upheld in a court of law. Mm-hmm. And I would feel more comfortable that if we're more specific, that we would be have a better chance of being upheld than as things exist right now.
Let's just say that the mayor and his staff were so inclined to not allow them under current law. You don't feel he would be on strong standing to go shut down short-term rentals?
I would not recommend that. Yeah. I am familiar with, there are some Alabama court cases on short-term rental issues, not specifically yet as to ordinances that are enacted by cities. But look, I understand where Sonia's coming from this standpoint. I mean, we really value private property rights in this country for a good reason. Our founders those were taken away from our founders, and they wanted to make sure that we preserved them. I know that's council, whether you're for more regulation or not, I think you all agree with that. That's what we're all about in this country. So, the idea is to put together reasonable regulations that protect property rights, but also protect neighbors. I think Sonia's points there's not a thing wrong with them. I could certainly argue with her, but I think we have had some people that have come forward in various neighborhoods, not just Honeysuckle, who have said, that they have found this to be a problem. I know we've had another neighborhood where somebody was advertising 16 people could reside in their private residence. Now, for a short-term rental. I'm not sure where in the city of Enterprise that would be a good idea. What neighborhood that would be a good idea for a short-term rental. So there's certainly areas that I think need to be addressed. It's just a question of how far you want to address them and getting it to a point where if it's challenged, that we can justify its existence and ask that it be upheld.
So to the next point that I asked you to address, which is a lot of confusion. I think it's very semantical. My covenants say no business activity. Your zoning ordinance says no business activity. And then we say, well, no, this is not business. This is residential activity, but the person's making money off of it, and we're collecting taxes off of it. So address that.
And this doesn't necessarily make it legal. We've looked at a lot of, I'm calling them Airbnb ordinances, but short-term rentals. Universally, they require a business license, and the idea is, as you know better than most, you don't collect business license as a revenue maker. You collect business license fees to keep track of, in case there's a problem, of a business. So that doesn't necessarily make it, of course, legal just because everybody does it. But I think in this case, the activity of leasing on a short-term basis, particularly with these third-party companies, is indicative of a business. And to that extent, it ought to be viewed that way. So I think that's a reasonable approach.
But the actual activity that's going on, which is habitation of a single-family residence in most cases, is a residential activity under the eyes of Supreme Court of Alabama, right?
It certainly is, as to the Alabama Court of Civil Appeals.
Okay.
But let me just say, I think from an ordinance standpoint, argument can be made that a short-term rental for a couple of 3 nights, is much more in the nature of a hotel type arrangement than a long-term rental that we've all seen in residential areas where you enter into a 6-month or a year or longer lease. So
then why is it not outside of our existing use laws?
The definitions of a short-term rental are not as clear as I think they should be under bed and breakfast and boarding house. I think we need a more specific definition to meet what's going on exactly. So I can only give you my best opinion on that.
Does anybody have any other questions of Rainer regarding any of this?
Thank you.
Thanks, Rainer. All right, we will. Does anybody have any other comments? We've got a few minutes. We're not going to address any other agenda items.
No.
All right, we will take a brief recess of about 6 minutes and reconvene in regular meeting. Rainer, should we just recess the work session and reconvene the work session after the meeting? Would that be the cleanest? Okay, so the work sessions in recess will reconvene after our regular meeting.
My watch is behind time. I'm about 4 minutes behind.
Mine does that every day.
I just wear mine as a decorative piece because
Sonia, I agree with you. A lot of what you said, I was shocked.
we have spent a year as a country just practically arguing about overreach. I want us to have the word I like that Rainer used, reasonable. And
But ultimately, we got to
yeah, we got to talk about it. But I think, and I hate to say it, this is a case. It just landed on the wrong street. That's what it is. And they start raising hell.
And I like your example. I'm sure
Yeah.
works better. But now, before all this came up, about 2 weeks previous to this, I had a call from a single mother who lived in a town. Her next door neighbor would be a vegan if she did. Because she had two small children. I never knew it was going to be my next door neighbor.
And and I might be wrong, y'all. You tell me. One of the things I thought about when I was trying to get my opinion together this thing, one thing that has irked me more than anything after going through an actual campaign process is about how our districts, how they're zoned out, how they just went in and carved.
Well, yours was literal gerrymandering.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like literally, our street, this street, that's a Park Avenue. We could be on Plaza Drive on one side of the street.
So Lee Street's a good example.
Is your
Well, the line's got to be somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Line's got to be somewhere.
But it's just like I don't like that Swiss cheese. I call
Well,
it
yours
Swiss
was drawn.
cheese on it.
Yours was drawn to produce some minority.
It was.
But that was in the early 80s.
It was ancient.
There's been migration.
Mine was drawn up from here to here to here.
Well, it was, of course, it was under federal court order. We had to produce African Americans. And if we were drawing them up today, they probably would. I mean, I think we should look at doing it. You got to produce an African American. But I think, I've got a good business.
Well, it doesn't look like it looked
Right.
now.
There's been a lot of.
And I guess I just don't want this to look like this council is saying for the Park neighborhoods, we don't want to be.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to be clear. That's not.
Okay.
It was all single family. The only distinction was if we wanted to do it across the board, we could. But
And I've heard a lot about this R100, R100. I'm like, what difference does
you
that
can't
make?
do that. You do that is what you're talking.
Yeah, I say you can't do that. That's just residential, and that has to do with the size of the lot, right?
That would invite. No, I mean we needed to do that. The agenda's fairly mundane, to be honest. Handyman type stuff. Sonia.
All in all, I thought the discussion went well.
Yeah, like I said, that's the sausage making the local legislation. I mean, this is the only way we're allowed to do it.
That's right.
Sign. Tell her it's 6 o'clock. Do you want to do it in staff reports or just? Yeah, that's fine. That's what we have that for. I mean, we're meeting after this meeting. So. Oh, well, absolutely. That's what staff reports are for. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the 30-second notice there, Don. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got 6 o'clock. So if we could get the room in order, I will call this meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members are present except for Greg Paget, who sends his apologies. He is out of town. I assure you that it was pre-planned and he was not avoiding the spirited conversation. So please stand for the opening prayer and pledge allegiance. Zach Clark from First Baptist Church.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father God, we know that you are good, you are gracious, and you're merciful, God. We just come to you today, God, just for wisdom for every person on this council, God. We know that everything on the agenda some things may seem small, some things may just spark something in people's lives, God, that they may be happy about, angry about, God. But just know that you are in control of every situation, God, and that you have appointed each and every one of these members for your purpose and for your good and for your will, God. Just as King David wrote, God, just make your ways known to us, God. Teach us your paths. Guide us in your truth and teach us, for you are the God of our salvation. We will wait for you all the day long, God. We just pray over this blessings, over this meeting, God. In your son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. All right, Council, you should have all received an agenda last week. Hopefully you had a chance to review it. My apologies for not having time to review it in the work session, but I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the city council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of a member of the city council. I will now call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now recognize Main Street Enterprise Director Cassidy Kendrick, who has requested to address the council to obtain a permit to hold the Whoville 5K and Fun Run with the Grinch on Saturday, December 11th, 2021, from 7:45 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Hey, Cassidy.
I didn't have anything extra to add to that, but it's the second year that we've done this 5K, and we partner with the CrossFit gym downtown and Parks and Rec for this event.
Does anybody have any questions of Cassidy?
Please, Chief.
Chief Moore, we good? All right. I will entertain a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now's the time of the meeting, referred to as privilege of the floor. So anybody here tonight from the public that wants to address the council will have 3 minutes to do so. Do we have anybody here that wants to address the council? All right. Seeing none, we will move on. Staff reports. I think we do have a couple of staff reports. Leanne, you up?
Just a really quick one. The water department, just to make everybody aware, we have become aware of a glitch in the accounting system, and the last set of bills that went out for the water department, there was approximately 7,000 customers who were not appropriately charged taxes on their water usage. So we have someone down the hall right now who is actively working to reverse those bills and then get new bills sent out to those customers. And so they will be sending those bills out. And then we also are working to refund. There's approximately 100 or so customers who have already paid those bills that have been sent out. And we're working to get those refunded to them. And we're also working with our IT people to make sure that the glitch that was in the system has been resolved and will be hopefully taken care of before the next billing cycle at the end of the month. But I just wanted to make everybody aware and let you know that that's going on if there's any questions from citizens about that situation.
So if we do get caught on it, should we direct them to revenue or to water department?
I would direct them to the water department. I think that's probably I mean, they're welcome to call me if they want to, but I will probably defer to the water department because they can go in and check and see, are you one of the people that we went in and reversed that bill for? If you've already paid, they can go in and look at your account and see, yes, you paid, and we are refunding you that payment, and then issuing a new bill for it. But the water department can go in there and look at each individual's account and see what happened.
But there's no reason for anybody to be proactive about that. I mean, they'll get it. We'll get a new. If it happened to me, I'll get a new bill in the mail.
Yes, absolutely.
I think I'm one of those 100.
Are you one of them?
I think so.
So
I always go early.
Come on down and we'll take care of you.
Keep it for the next night.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you. Any other staff reports, Barry?
As y'all know, we published the holiday schedule for the city being off, and I wanted to take this moment to remind people next week is being Thanksgiving, what we're going to do about garbage collection across the city. So just for next week, if your pickup day is normally on Wednesday and your special needs where the city actually comes up and picks up your can, we're going to move those to Tuesday to make room for Thursday. And then if your garbage is normally picked up on Thursday and Friday, it will be picked up on Wednesday of next week. So we'll be picking up the normal Wednesday, and then anybody that normally gets Thursday and Friday will pick all those up on Wednesday of next week. The following week we'll be back on the regular schedule. I just wanted to take this moment and remind people we've got this on the city webpage. We've also done a press release and trying to get it out on social media as well.
Now, this is fairly typical of what we've done in previous years, right?
That's exactly. It's the same thing we've done in the past.
Any questions for Barry?
Thank you.
No, thank you, Barry. Any other staff reports? Cassidy?
Just really quick, I know a few weeks ago I mentioned to you all that we were part of the America's Main Street contest, and we found out on Monday that out of the 216 cities that were nominated, we made the top 25. So that means we made it to round 2. There were almost 500,000 votes collectively for all the cities that were nominated. I don't know how many we got, but thank you to everyone watching online in the crowd, everyone that voted for us. I know I voted like 100 times a day. So, and I made my family members vote too. So if you guys were a part of that, I appreciate it. Hopefully we can win this contest, and it'll be $25,000 for a project for downtown. So we've shared it on our Facebook. We're going to put another press release out and really try to encourage everyone to keep voting for us. And you can vote 25 times a day. So please do if you remember. and I'll remind you if
You
you
will.
if you need that. So that was
Okay.
all I had.
Thank you, Cassie. Any other staff reports? All right, we will move on with old business, of which there is none. So now new business. I will now introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 11-16-21, adopting and implementing the Plan C modified job classification and compensation plan conducted by Condrey and Associates to include new pay ranges, equity adjustments, and new position classifications or job titles for the classified positions of the City of Enterprise. A $4,000 a year adjustment for all classified sworn police officers, and $3,000 per year adjustment for all classified sworn firefighters, as well as adjustments for certain unclassified appointed positions. If approved, said changes and implementation will become effective beginning pay period March 30, 2022, except for the adjustment to sworn police officers and firefighters, which will take effect beginning pay period December 22, 2021. So, council, this has been discussed for some time now, most of the year actually. So this is just a codification of all those previous decisions that we've made. This was in the budget that's been adopted, right, Leanne?
All adjustments to the pay scale, including the police officers and firefighters, were included in
Yep.
our budget numbers for the year, taking into account the appropriate begin date. So they've all been in there.
Yep. So this is consistent with the budget we've passed. Again, this is just updating all those pay tables and everything. So I will entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
So moved. Second?
All right, we have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I now introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 11-16-21A, providing for the adoption of the Severe Weather Preparedness Sales Tax Holiday as per Act 2012-256, beginning at 12:01 a.m. on Friday, February 25th, 2022, and ending at midnight on Sunday, February 27th, 2022. Covered items include, among other things, batteries, tarps, plywood, and radios with a sales price of $60 or less. I'll entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I'd just like to say, if anybody buys a weather radio, please contact me. I've got some CERT members that can program those things for you. So if you buy a weather radio, please let me know. We'll take care of it.
Thank you, Scotty. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 11-16-21B, providing for the adoption of the Southeast Alabama Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan in conjunction with other Coffee County entities. I'll now entertain a motion to consider to adopt this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 11-16-21C, providing for an agreement between the City of Enterprise and the State of Alabama, acting by and through the Alabama Department of Transportation, relating to a transportation alternatives project for sidewalks along Delville Avenue from Highland Drive to Bowleville Circle. Resolution 11-16-21C further authorizes the mayor to execute final agreement with the state. I'll entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. This, we've discussed this several times, haven't we, Barry?
Yes, sir. This is the TAP grant that we received for the sidewalk project. So this will be to approve the grant, and the next item will be for the engineering to do that same project.
Yep. All right, any questions of Barry or staff? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement in the amount of $39,150 with Three Notch Partners Incorporated for design services related to the preparation of construction plans and specifications for the 2022 TAP sidewalk project. As Barry just explained, this is just authorizing the mayor to sign this agreement to administer this program. So I'll entertain a motion to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Barry, I'd like to ask a question, please. This $39,000, but Three Notch Partners is the design. That's for a sidewalk to go from Wheater Street to the bypass.
That is correct. It's to tie in from Wheater Street to just short of the bypass to the that strip mall that's 100 yards from the bypass. It
It
doesn't go.
blows my mind that it would cost $39,000 to design a sidewalk to go that distance.
So there's the application for the grant, there's the survey, there's the design, the approval from AlDOT to administer their project, oversee the construction, and close out paperwork for the grant. And the construction's picked up at 80/20 by AlDOT for it. For what I remember, 80/20 on the grant, but the design costs are funded by the city. Yes, sir.
So,
Thank you.
So is this in line with, I mean, is it commensurate with the amount of
Yes, sir.
work that's required?
I did some research on what typically our engineering costs for a project like this, and this falls right in line with what I would expect.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now introduce and call for consideration of a request from City Engineer Public Works Barry Mott to seek bids for the purchase of concrete by a unit price contract for a 1-year period with the option of 2 1-year extensions. This bid is for materials only, and this is what Barry explained to us in the work session. So entertain a motion to grant this request.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. This is on the same subject, so I'll introduce and call for consideration of request from City Engineer Public Works Director Barry Mott to seek bids for the removal and replacement of existing sidewalks by a unit price contract. I'll entertain a motion to grant this request.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll introduce and call for consideration of request from Stacy Hayes, Assistant Director, to install the following street lights at an annual cost of $1,152.36. This involves 9 LED colonial fixtures, 46 watt, 4001-5500 lumens, or I guess 4001 to 5500 lumens, located in Hunters Hill Subdivision, Phase 1. I'll entertain a motion to grant this request.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor, you got a report for us?
Well, we just like to thank everybody for coming and wish everyone a safe and blessed Thanksgiving holiday.
Thank you. Ms. Rich?
I know I've said a lot tonight, but as we go forward with hopes to some resolve to this Airbnb, my goal is to able to, I want us to be able to put something in place that people can do business that are wanting to do business with Airbnb, and that they can do it with just common sense and effective and do the right thing and be considerate of our neighbors. And if they're gonna do it, be a little mindful and extra eye to who they're actually renting to, and just be good neighbors, just like we want in every day. So I think we'll get to that eventually. I wanted just to make a brief announcement. John's Chapel AME Church and our Enterprise Fire Department will be giving out free smoke detectors for homes, and that's going to be on November 21st. The pickup time is going to be 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock at John's Chapel Church, and it's free installation. So I'm trying to see, if you would like that, if you know somebody that needs that for their home, you can contact Pastor White at 334-701-5853, or Dr. Russell Nichols at 334-475-0212. You can contact me. My number's on the website, and I'm sure you can contact the fire department, right, Chief? Right. Thanks, y'all. Thank y'all for coming.
Councilman Goolsby?
Well, I was very disappointed that we did not have any bidders on the sidewalk repair project. These sidewalks, if you don't know, had to do with College Street, Lee Street, all the little streets between. some sidewalks over on Wheater Street near the hospital. But I'm glad to see that Barry has reorganized this to get bids on concrete and labor, and hopefully this will be a success. Thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, everybody online following us. It's great to see folks involved in city government. Again, have a very blessed and happy Thanksgiving. God bless everybody.
Yes, ditto what everybody said. I appreciate each of you for coming tonight and having respectful conversation, debate, and even disagreement at times. I think that's a good thing, that our citizens can see that we really don't always just get up here and rubber stamp everything. So yeah, so and Sonia and I are due for a good argument every quarter anyway. So I guess it was time. But I appreciate everybody coming out. Please feel free to reach out to any of us and stay in contact with us, engage us on these issues that you're interested in. And we are going to adjourn this meeting. We're going to reconvene in a work session after we get everything signed and everything. So you're certainly welcome to stick around for that. So we are adjourned. You have a good evening.
Are we staying here for the work session or going to conference?
We're gonna go in executive session. I don't think we have anything to discuss outside of. I'm gonna sign your place, Scott. I did. Yeah.